Genesis chapter 2.
And we got they ruin it all at once. Which did we decide? Did we talk about already whether this happens on the seventh day or later? I think it happens on the
I think
seventh
we
day.
brought it up.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense. So I've got a wedding on Saturday, and I think I'm gonna go through the whole Bible. I mean, not really, but like the flow is interesting. So you get the wedding, Genesis chapter 2, and then right away you get sin, right? So that's the pattern for marriage, from Adam and Eve.
Yeah. And the first casualty of sin is husband and wife, the relationship between husband and wife. That's the first casualty.
Right, exactly. So correct me here, but this is my revolutionary thought on premarital counseling. And shame on me for this taking so long to realize. If you want to have a good marriage, it's really simple. Just be a good Christian.
Yeah. So entertain then the really practical question: Can you, Pastor Reber, perform a wedding for a non-Christian, one of the other members of the couple?
Yeah. Well, I haven't up to this point, so I've been thankful for that. And I mean, I think Paul's pretty, clear on this about being unequally yoked, right? So he's like, if you find yourself in this marriage, don't leave your spouse, right? So he's pretty clear on that. But it's like, man, we're doing this in the presence of God, and one of you doesn't believe in Him. Yeah, I don't think I could do that. Could you?
Well, no, and I don't think so. No, that's not strong enough. I wouldn't. And part of the reason is because, well, it's kind of like with baptismal sponsors. I can't actually ask you that question if you're not going to answer, like knowing that you wouldn't be able to answer it honestly. Will you, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church? Well, you kind of have to know who Christ is and how he loved the church. And moreover, you can't love that way unless you've been loved that way by Christ. Likewise, wives, submit to your husbands. You can't submit the way the church submits to Christ without being a Christian. It's not possible. So
Yeah, that's really good. So it's like we have an easy solution. I mean, go to the courthouse. Although we would tell our
yeah,
members don't marry that person.
right. And that's always an interesting. That's where it kind of gets hairy in terms of like pastoral wisdom. So here I'm telling you, don't do this thing. At like the sort of weakest articulation of that is this is inadvisable. The strongest would be this is sinful, right? But here's a way you could do it if you if you wanted to. Or maybe the thing that maybe better than saying any of those things, of course, would be like the practical question is, well, what happens if we do that? It's like, well, you are married, but things are going to be you're creating trouble for yourself, right?
Yeah, let's okay, so let's go one step in the other direction, which I think is more common for us. And you've read the Lutheran Orthodox fathers on this question. So marrying non-Lutherans. You got any thoughts on that?
You mean the pastor performing the wedding for non-Lutherans?
Right, yeah. So you got a Lutheran member, and she's marrying a
Yeah,
Catholic or
right.
Methodist or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think the answer is actually the same because so husband as head of his wife, right? How can he agree to be head if he's not also bringing her into a church that teaches true doctrine? Likewise, how can
Hmm.
you follow your head if he's going to church somewhere where they teach false doctrine? You can't make those promises. It really ends up being quite exclusive for me. I can't if you're not a member or becoming a member of the church, both of you, I can't in good conscience ask you these questions.
So do you tell the couple, hey, you guys need to decide where you're going to church, like either here or your church, and whatever answer you have is fine, right? But like I just want to do my wedding for members so I can take care of you spiritually.
That's essentially it. Yeah, this is a package deal. If I perform your wedding, you're getting a package, or you're getting a pastor as a part of the package. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I've been blessed enough to combine the premarital with some some catechesis at the same time, and it's been really fruitful. So I've done two now, where one was Catholic becoming Lutheran, and I'm hoping for a third. They're not engaged yet, but It would be pretty cool to do that again.
Yeah.
And what's really beneficial about it, and I'm thinking about just doing this for all premarital, is going through the faith once again. Because again, the simple thing is like, hey, good Christians means good marriage, and you know this going through Bible class. You ask a basic question that they learned in confirmation, and that was 40 years ago, right? So we could redo the whole thing when they're in their 20s or 30s or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. And then it also here's a new application of, say, you might call them the Christian skills that you learned, supposing you have learned them. For instance, confession and forgiveness, right? Like, so you've learned how, like you're a good Christian, fantastic. You learned how to get along with your siblings, confess and be forgiven, or with your parents. But here's a new one now. You're getting married. It's a different set of challenges. So let's make sure you know how to do this going forward.
And it's the foundational relationship, right? So it's like it's on top, right? But it's also the foundation. Just like God, right? Marriage isn't everything. And if we have a society that's doesn't take marriage well, like you're gonna be a sick society, which is why in Genesis 3, like we shouldn't be surprised. The devil goes for the jugular, right?
Yeah.
Goes right to the woman.
Yeah. So his attack on humanity is through is it right to say that it's through marriage? I mean, subverting marriage is what he's doing. By grabbing her ear and saying things to her, her ear, which properly only belongs first to God and then to Adam, right? He's working his way in there and subverting marriage.
Yeah, that's how I would do it
Yeah.
if I was trying to make like downfall of society, right?
Interesting. And do you find this to be the case that that uh, there's a sense among families that the pastor has a primary relationship with mothers and wives, and that's how he gets at the kids is through mom and mother and wife. Like for instance, who makes the arrangements? Who tends to make the arrangements for like confirmation class? Who makes sure that the kids show up on time, right? You know,
Right, yeah, you're right. It's always the mom. Now I'd be interested in this question 50 years ago,
yeah.
right? So pastors calling houses, and who's he making the arrangements with then? And I don't know the answer. I mean, there is something motherly to it, right? So we think about Sunday school.
Hmm.
It would be kind of weird if there was a dude teaching kindergartners Sunday school, right? Or like preschoolers.
I
I mean,
don't
that
have that
does seem
same
like a
reaction.
motherly.
But
You
I can
don't?
see why
Okay.
you say that, but I don't have that same kind of intuition about it. Yeah.
Okay, but it doesn't like there definitely is a motherly task to it. So I don't know if like I don't have a knee-jerk reaction to it, but there is a sense of like it is a problem though if dad's not involved at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So in Fritz's, it's either in his pastoral theology or in the practical missionary, he makes a point, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, about when you're making calls on houses in the neighborhood. If the wife answers the door, you're saying, when can I come back to visit with you and your husband? Right? That's the conversation there. Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So
No, go ahead.
you know, it's not a marriage that is yet beset by weakness, the weakness of sin, and nonetheless for Satan, it's clear how to attack, how to approach things here. Um, so he goes after Eve. Now, uh, what is what is the what's the sin here? What's the original sin?
Yeah, and I don't know if we can pin it down to like something really like at what point did they fall into sin, right? It's like at what okay, here's kind of related question. At what point does the elements on the altar, is that the Eucharist?
It's sometime before it goes into your mouth. How about
Is it during the Sanctus?
that? It begins during the Sanctus, right? Yeah. So see, that's why if you don't sing the Sanctus, you don't have the Lord's Supper. Is that why that is?
Is-
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. So at what point does a man and a woman become married? So is it during the ceremony? Because we do say I pronounce you as husband and wife, right? But
Right.
it's not completed until they consummate the marriage, right?
So maybe that you could see how this would be by design, that there are things that God constructs in such a way that we actually cannot pinpoint what our kind of uh, what am I thinking? Manipulative brains want to pinpoint. We can't do it. That doesn't mean that it's not there. It's just that we don't. It's inscrutable to us. And that's across like that happens all the time. When did you become a Christian? You know, when did you believe in Jesus?
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Because I think you can already see the sin when like Eve is entertaining the idea to eat the fruit, right? That's already sinful because as we
Yeah.
know, like sin starts in the heart. So here's the question. It's like if they don't actually eat it, but they still desired it, uh, they still would have gotten out of the garden, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What that is that's an interesting thought experiment. Because James gives us that progression, right? Uh, Desire conceived gives birth to sin. Sin fully grown brings forth death. So there's this maturation. So what would it have meant if if the desire had been there, but they had not let it conceive sin? Well, that would be an interesting. This is like, I mean, this is what C.S. Lewis does essentially, in Paralandra, right? He's contemplating what it's like for the Eve on Venus to entertain the temptation, to just spend the night on the solid land, but not actually ever do it, right?
You're right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, thankfully, I don't know if I want to say thankfully that didn't happen because then we'd know. But man, yeah. So yeah, I guess my reason of bringing that up is like sin is a lot bigger than we like to think of it as.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've thought this for a while. It's like that. Yeah, maybe they don't eat from the tree of knowledge. Of course they do, but there's like a million other things that they could have done to sin. Like they could have theoretically just said, well, I don't really like God anymore. So they still don't eat. Like it's so we pretend like it's only one sin, right? But there's a million different avenues. So take for example Jesus' temptation. He starts with the first temptation, right? It deals with food because that's the first place you go. You aim for the belly through the eyes. And so if the devil doesn't get them to sin on that account, you better believe he's going to go somewhere else. Like is he going to tell Adam and Eve, "Hey, go to the top of the mountain here and throw yourself down because yeah, God's going to catch you."
Hmm. Hmm. Thinking about the relationship between the devil's temptation in the garden and for Jesus, as well as what he does in the book of Job. We just went over Job last night in Wednesday evening Bible class, and it's interesting because by faith, Job is stronger than Adam and Eve were by nature. So Luther makes this point. He's like, why would you make any claims about in the bondage of the will? Why would you make any claims about the strength of your free will, seeing as Adam and Eve's free will wasn't capable of resisting the temptation of the devil? It's so great. That's such a great argument. But what's remarkable then is that by faith, you actually are more confirmed in goodness than Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, because you actually do resist the devil. You say no to him.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So like the best way of looking at it is like as Christians, we've got one foot in Genesis and one foot in Revelation at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So we're still not confirmed, and yet we still have the salvation right now. Now we can lose it, as we know, as Lutherans are not once saved, always saved. But yeah, you're right. It's like this is where the word perfect is kind of misleading, right? Because we can say they're perfect. What do we mean in Genesis 1 and 2? We mean morally perfect, right? But they're not complete yet, which is what
Hmm.
the word telos means. On the other hand, this gets reversed. So Jesus will tell us with James, right? Be perfect,
Hmm.
telos, as my heavenly Father is perfect. And he's not telling us to be morally perfect in this life because of course that's impossible, but he's telling us to be complete. And what that means is you can take Luke's equivalent from the Sermon on the Plain. It means to be merciful as your heavenly Father is merciful, because that means, hey, you've received the forgiveness, you get it now, you get the atonement, and now you apply that to others. But yeah, that the word perfect is we need to tease that out a little bit more when we say
Yeah,
that.
it is. That's another confounding thing, and so maybe again, it must be by design, right? So you're not allowed to read the scripture and come across that turn of phrase, be perfect, and have a simplistic understanding of it. You just like the scriptures do not allow you to do that, and so you actually do have to work it out. And it seems to me um, that question, the working out of that question is within your own heart, right? So work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So Jesus tells you the parable of the Good Samaritan, and at the end of the parable, the question isn't so much like, well, how many times have you helped a poor guy on the side of the road, but like, are you offended by this? He says do this, and you're like, I don't want to do that, or I'm not. That's not actually what's good. Is that your attitude or not? Like you can really only tell by inspecting the way your own heart reacts to what Jesus says, whether you're convicted of your sin and absolved by him, or whether you're like, that's not what I signed up for. Which is, I mean, that's how the Pharisees, that's how the rich young man, like that's how these guys react when Jesus is there. He's an aroma of death to them. So how does Jesus smell to you? Um, that determines that's the test for whether or not you're quote unquote perfect, right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. And connecting that to Genesis, how does he end a lot of the parables, right? He who has ears, let him hear. And so the devil's like, I'm gonna go for the eyes.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. And then of course their hearing is rebellious, or their hearing. What is it? What do I want to say? Like it comes back to haunt them because they hear God walking in the cool of the garden. So it's not even his voice. It's just his footfalls now that have become abominable to them. Yeah.
How big do you think he was in this form?
Bigfoot or bigger, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
Now, do you think that they were okay? I've never entertained it before, but do you think that's literal? They heard the sound, or um, because that requires then that God is uh, taking on a human form, right? So we've got a theophany that looks like a man or sounds like a man, right? Is that what's happening
Mhm.
there, or is it some like is this in their conscience that is happening?
Oh, no, I would think the first option, because
Okay.
so God does this with Abraham, right? He appears with the two angels, and we know they're two angels because then we're told the angels go to Sodom and Gomorrah in the
Yeah.
following chapter, right? And so this is, I mean, is this the Son then? Are we putting it down to, because whenever God deals with humanity, right, he sends the Son.
Okay, so that seems to be the pattern, and it's certainly convenient. But is there any way we could establish that definitively? Is there a proof text for when you see God's presence, it's the Son?
I'm just thinking of the pattern, over and
Yeah.
over and over again. You got the angel of the Lord,
Right.
right? Who is clearly divine, because Exodus makes that implicit. He's like the angel of the Lord, like God's doing this. I am doing this. So that's
Yeah.
clearly God. That's the Son. I agree. I agree with Gieschen. Did you
Well,
ever
and
read?
you get. I was just to say you get Paul in First Corinthians. It occurs to me, right? The rock who followed them was Christ, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And so that just makes more theological sense to me that it would be the Son. Um, I don't think you have explicit things here in Genesis 3 to establish that,
Right.
but it's like wrestling. It's like wrestling with Jacob too. Like that's God. He clearly takes on a human form, right? It's not the incarnation yet, but that's the Son, isn't it?
Yeah. 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 It has to be. Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. What else you got about Genesis 3?
Okay, so we got the temptation, we got the senses. I wanna. Ooh, we should talk about fig leaves. I Do you like fig Newtons?
In a pinch, in a bind, they get the job done.
Okay, my kid loves them. We got two different types. We got blue bars and red bars. The blue bars are blueberry figs, and the red ones are raspberry. And she she loves them. Like blue bar. And I discovered bacon wrapped figs 2 years ago at the campus ministry conference in Minneapolis. And man, those are great. Now that's a theological thing. Now I think they were called like devil humpbacks or something like that. So something close to that. Now that's interesting to me because you got pork and you got figs, right? So you've got like two like forbidden things kind of in the Old Testament. Now I know figs aren't forbidden, but you got fig leaves here associated with sin, and you got pork, right? So Jewish dietary restrictions. But you put these two things together in the New Testament. I mean, this is why we eat ham on Christmas and Easter, right?
It does make sense. Yeah. Why we're not going to eat fish on Easter. We're going to eat ham. Yeah. Hmm. So uh, you've got, so help me with the connection though, because I mean, so you're just saying by covering with fig leaves, you've got this association with something that is forbidden or something, what would be, taboo.
Well, yeah. So it's supposed to be fruitful, right? So we trace that fig tree
Yeah.
throughout the Bible, right? So they grab the leaves because that's the biggest part, but you can't eat fig leaves. I don't think, can you? I don't know. I've never tried. I'd imagine it wouldn't be very very good, and they prove to be inadequate because God clothes them with animal skins. So this always gets chuckles. Like they go with the vegan clothing option, and God says no.
Yeah. That's good. Hmm. Hmm. I wish I knew more. It'd probably be helpful to know more about the cultivation of figs. Kind of, I mean, they're parallel to vines, right? So you got your grapevines and your fig trees. This is the agronomy of the Old Testament. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and there's this great parable that really goes with Genesis 3 and Judges. Is it Judges 10
Nine.
somewhere, 9? Okay, is that the so this is Abimelech, right?
Right.
And it's the one brother who gets away. Yeah, so Judges 9, starting in verse 7. This is Jotham, the brother who says this great parable. And these things appear over and over and over again throughout the New Testament, right? Jesus mentions these in the Sermon on the Mount. James mentions these exact things. So you've got the olive tree, so that's the oil, right? So Christologically, very important to be anointed. You got the fig tree right there in verse 10. Good fruit, hey, good and bad fruit. Verse 13, the vine, obviously connected with wine, and then here's the connection with the curse. Verse 15 is you've got the bramble, so that's the thorns from Genesis chapter 3. So there's no fruit with thorns and thistles, and they hurt. That's the problem.
Hmm. Hmm. Let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. This is interesting because in Second Kings chapter 14, Amaziah is having a conversation with Jehoram, the king of the north, something like that. These names are all the same. And he wants to pick a fight with him because he's just defeated the Edomites and Messiah. And he says, "Come, let's look at each other in the eye." And the king of the northern kingdom says, "Let me tell you a story. A thistle on Lebanon said to a cedar on Lebanon, 'Let me take your daughter in marriage.' And a wild beast came and ran through Lebanon and trampled the thistle underfoot. And and then he just wallops him in battle. But I mean, these images are so they're like archetypal for an Old Testament audience, right? These things are not just. I mean, this is the um, James Jordan stuff about these. The symbols are not just in the words, but they're baked into the things themselves, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah. So my so with fig leaves, it's like whenever I see that in the New Testament, John chapter 1, Jesus sees Nathanael under the fig tree. And that's probably my like one of my favorite stories because he says, "You're an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." And Nathanael's like how do you know me? And Jesus says, "Well, I saw you under the fig tree." And Nathanael's response is, "You're the Son of God."
Yeah, right. Right.
It's like clearly something else is going on here. Because like if somebody said they saw me under a fig tree, my first reaction wouldn't be like, "Dude, you're the king of Israel."
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You're gonna like this. I'm looking up I did a little bit of work on that at one point. And because it's like what's happening in that moment is there's this conversation, kind of like how you always quote Family Guy. Like if you were talking to somebody who knew Family Guy, you could say one line, right? And I could say the I could say the next line. And that's what's going on in that conversation. Jesus is quoting some one of the prophets, and it's like Nathaniel replies with the next line from the prophets. I can't remember where it is, but it's like Zechariah or something like that. The King of Israel.
Yeah, I
That's
think it
that's the operative phrase right there.
right. I think it's Zechariah, and then it seems to be Psalm 32
Okay.
is at play there. So deceit, word is was doulos, right? Yeah, not a common word. An Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit. So that shows up in Psalm 32. Blessed is the one whose sin is forgiven,
Yeah.
in whom there is no deceit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
So my wild take on that, and I probably got this from Augustine, but he's like, this is kind of like a confession and absolution almost. It's like Jesus sees him under the fig tree. So we take that back to Genesis. It's like there he is. He's sinful, trying to hide it, but Jesus sees right through it. But Jesus says, "Hey, you've got no deceit." So that's the absolution, and that's probably too Lutheran, but I like it.
No, I think that's great, and it fits with if you were reading along in Zephaniah. So it's Zephaniah chapter 3, towards the end. Here's
Okay.
here's how it goes. It says, but I will leave in your midst a people humble and lowly. They shall seek refuge in the name of the Lord. Those who are left in Israel, they shall do no injustice and speak no lies, nor shall there be found in their mouth a deceitful tongue. That's Zephaniah 3:12 and 13. And then the next two verses go like this: Sing aloud, O daughter of Zion, rejoice and exult with all your heart. The Lord has taken away the judgments against you, he's cleared away your enemies. The King of Israel, the Lord, is in your midst. So it's like
Mm.
Nathaniel saw the movie, and now and now Jesus said the line, and Nathaniel's like, I what else? So clearly, here you are, man. It's so good. I love it.
That No, that's really good. So he's contra via everybody else because they're like, well, we've got Moses and we don't believe in you. And Jesus is like, well, if you believe Moses, you would have believed in me. And so
Right.
this is Nathaniel. He's like, I do believe Moses and I do believe in you because I've seen this play out. And and
Yeah.
and of course it's like this is the Father revealing it to him. This is what Jesus says to Peter. Like it wasn't flesh and blood, it was my Father who
Yeah.
revealed this to you.
Because you can in fact know the scriptures through and through and still miss it, right? The Pharisees knew, they had the external clarity of God's word, but their eyes were darkened. They were blind, right?
Right. This is why it kind of drives me nuts when people are like, well, what do the rabbis say? And we're talking about who's that guy from the um, is it 11th, 10th century Moses? How do you say his last name? Um,
Oh,
Memo. I don't. It's like
Maimonides.
Maimonides.
Yeah,
Maimonides. Okay,
that sounds like
I've
a
read
Greek
the
name.
I've
That
read the
can't be
name.
right.
No, I think that sounds really good. I didn't want to embarrass myself because I've just read it. I don't talk about these things a lot, but like people will quote him or, even like a guy like Dennis Prager, right? Who probably he's got some good stuff to say, right? But like at the end of the day, we got to say, guys, if you don't have Christ, you don't understand the scriptures.
Yeah.
Like all
So
you all
helpful.
you have at that point is natural revelation, which, as we discussed, there's some wisdom there, but you're gonna miss the whole thing.
Yeah, helpful for gaining external clarity, right? So this is like, Kenneth Bailey helped us a ton by writing his commentary on, Jesus through Middle Eastern eyes. It's like, okay, this is really cool. This is, to know some things about the context of a parable, like the inside jokes essentially. But it's not the same thing as as believing the gospel. It's just not.
Right? Yeah. What did the church fathers call it? The analogy of faith.
Yeah, right, right. And that is this came up again in Bible class last night on the book of Job. Um, the question was essentially, it's like, what does it take to believe? And notice that Jesus, even at the end of Mark, after he's been raised from the dead, rebukes the disciples for their unbelief and hardness of heart. You said recently, I think maybe it was your sermon from last night actually, that it's red and white at the same time. It's not pink, right? It's red and white. So simultaneously, believer and unbeliever, you could say, sinner and saint, and that's certainly true, and that's a helpful thing to say. It's not by degrees that you become a believer. You are a child of God when Christ declares you to be one. That being said, it is by design confounding that you do not gain access to the kingdom of God by finally at long last figuring it out. It's only when you know your Father in heaven reveals it to you. It's only when He opens your eyes, and He doesn't have to. No, this is Job. Job's like, tell me, give me the answer, and God says, I don't, I don't owe you nothing, man.
I gotta ask a question. Who's your favorite reformer from the 16th century?
I,
Was he French?
hmm, I'm just gonna. How about I plead the Fifth Amendment? How's that sound? Can I do that in this
That's
podcast?
that's fine. We're recording this in America.
I would really like. We should do some Calvin. We should read his Institutes and figure out what actually was up with the guy. I mean, so let's draw the line in some clear places. Clearly, Christ died on the cross for the sins of the whole world. Okay, so limited atonement is a bunch of hogwash. But
That's nice
this
to
is
hear you say that.
okay. Well, but that being said, uh, the,
But
so
but
this is really interesting. So when I read The Bondage of the Will just recently, Luther's like first and foremost argument about um, the bound will is the sovereignty of God. It's basically God runs the show, and it's interesting because and this is the Calvinist primary doctrine would be the sovereignty of God, and we're going to say something like it's justification. It's Christ's sacrifice for our sins. So when Lutherans get a hold of the bondage of the will, and then later explications of the doctrine of the will, they emphasize, like Jim Nestingen goes to town on this. He's like, the cross of Christ is everything. So the reason why your will is bound, your will is bound, is because otherwise Christ wouldn't have had to die for you. Right? Christ would not have had to do the work for you. But Luther's first and primary argument is a very agreeable argument to the Calvinists, and it's God is God and you're not. So just sit down, right? It's kind of interesting that he makes a lot of hay out of that, but then it kind of goes away in Lutheranism, and we let the Calvinists have it, you know?
I I like the doctrine of providence.
Me
It's
too.
yeah, it's great. I don't think we disagree on this, and maybe we should read Institutes to understand what total depravity means. But I always kind of thought like we're kind of mostly on board with it. Um, maybe there's probably a little bit of differences, but yeah, you're right. You read Bondage of the Will. That sounds like total depravity, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So well, I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but this is a perfect time, and we can return to Genesis 3. But reading through the Magdeburg Confession, you ever read it?
No, I haven't.
I think it was only translated in English for the first time, like 10 to 15 years ago, from what I understand from the preface. So there's a new translation available from CPH. Fantastic. It was great. Thanks, Christian Preuss, for doing that. And the historical introduction is also really, really, really good by, yeah, that's right, Luther Classical College mug right there, by a professor there now, Ryan McPherson, which you had him in college, right?
You did.
Man, that guy, I from the interviews that I've seen with him, holy smokes, you were blessed to have him. Like, seems like an amazing professor who just knows so much wealth of knowledge, but seems like a really humble guy too. So great historical introduction. But what was really encouraging about reading this document, so a little bit of background, it's what 1550, right? So Luther dies in 1546. So he's gone, and the city Magdeburg, Pope wants to ruin everything that's Lutheran. And they're like, guys, we got to make a confession about this, about the civil magistrate, right? But they don't start there. They start how the Augsburg Confession starts. They're like, we're gonna make a confession of the faith, even though our city is about to be destroyed. We're gonna start with God. They're like, Augustana, number one, starts with God, and they've got 7 points that they go through, and it flows just like the Augsburg Confession was. It's like everything starts with God. So I'm okay with providence. I think that's great, and it shows you that everything goes back to God, even when your city's about to be destroyed. Like, what do? You confess the faith, and
Hmm.
I tell my people this all the time. It's like somebody's got a gun up to your head, and they're asking you about the faith. What do? It's like, oh, I think you got two options. You either pray the Lord's Prayer or you start saying the creed.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It makes me think about the exile and the counsel that's given by prophets. You know, so okay, Jerusalem's going to be destroyed. Uh, Go to Babylon, build houses, have children, do the normal things, which they would be desperate not to do because they feel so unsettled and their world is turned upside down and God has abandoned us, they would say. But no, just confess God in your life the same way you would even if you were back in Jerusalem, right? Daniel prayed 3 times a day, and then when he heard the decree, he prayed 3 times a day as he had previously done. I love it.
No, it's yeah, that's so good. It's like man, faithfulness, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what we're called to do. And man, I when Bruce Timm was the circuit visitor, like I wish I would get this advice from my current circuit visitor. He would say, guys, just be faithful.
He was a good circuit visitor. But he was like one of those kings that only reigned for 3 months, and then I don't know what happened to him. Got decapitated or something.
Well, well, if we're counting biblically, he reigned for a year,
That's true.
maybe even two. I got to check the calendar.
I always I always tell the kids, that you take that aphorism, practice makes perfect, which is kind of hopeless because you soon realize that it's not true. You don't actually get perfect at the thing. But if you reverse it, if you flip it around, it becomes very useful. And that is to say, you will get good at whatever you practice. And so I think about those guys in Magdeburg and like how you like reverse engineer it. How is it that they were able to write such a confession under such duress? It can only be because they were accustomed to confessing, that they were so used to it.
Right. It's like Jesus. You think he never prayed before he gets to Gethsemane,
Right.
and like Stephen. It's like you think that's the first time he preached to a bunch of cranky people, or yeah, starts seeing Jesus in heaven praying in that way. I mean, yeah, that's oh, I get goosebumps thinking about Stephen because James 1 talks about receiving the crown of life, right? And the Greek word for crown is Stephanos. And that story of Stephen is so beautiful because you got Stephen, his name means crown,
Yeah.
and he's about to die in the faith, and he's going to receive his crown.
Yeah. That's good. Is he martyred in Jerusalem? Is that right? Yeah. The high priest is there. Yeah, it must be. I'm just
And
thinking
his
about
yeah, his story matches.
I get my Jameses confused. Is James the author of James? Is he the Bishop of Jerusalem?
Yep.
Yeah. Man, how great. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on how you count, there's up to 7 Jameses in the New Testament. Now some of those might be the same, but you got son of Zebedee, you got James the Less. What a
Poor
what a
guy.
nickname, right? Yeah, poor guy. People were like, "Oh, you're John's brother." He's like, "No." They're like, "Oh, you're Jesus's brother." It's like, no. I so on that topic, it's like Jude in the Apostles had it even worse because so he's got 3 names, right? He's Jude, he's Thaddeus, and he's Labius. So we can't even decide what his name is. And then they're
So
like,
just
"Oh,
don't call
you're
me
a
Judas.
that's well, that's right, yeah." So it's like they're like, "Oh, you're Jesus's brother, right? You wrote the book of the Bible," and he's like, "No, I wish." And they're like, "Oh, you're the guy that betrayed Jesus? I thought he died." He's like, "No, how dare you?"
Yeah, that's good.
But it does teach us. It's like it is better to be faithful to Jesus than to be well known, right?
Yeah, yeah. What you have done, is going to be told throughout the world, but nobody knows who she is. She's just like everywhere this story is told, somebody, all that you know is that somebody was faithful, right? This faithful lady was
But
there.
yeah, but she's incredibly famous because she's tied to Christ, right?
Yep,
It's
exactly.
like what is Andrew doing second listed in the apostles? Because he doesn't belong there. The only reason it's Peter and then Andrew is because he's Peter's brother. So this is the old adage. We all know it's true. It doesn't matter what you know. It's all about who you know.
Yeah, right, right. So this kind of like entertaining the inner life of the apostles has me thinking about the chosen, which entertains these kinds of dynamics, right? So have you watched The Chosen at all?
No, no, I haven't.
Okay, so when if you're a congregation member said, "Hey, pastor, should I not watch The Chosen?" What would you say to them?
I wouldn't tell them to watch it or to not watch it. I would, because here's the thing, it's like artistic renditions of things. The church has always been okay with art, right? As a medium. So even if things are extra biblical, like those are interpretations. So I have seen The Passion of the Christ, and I think that movie is beautiful. And there's a whole lot of details in there that are kind of added. But one thing connecting this to Genesis 3, at the very beginning of the movie, you see Jesus pray, and you see a snake there, and he takes his heel and he stomps on the snake. Like that's a beautiful artistic rendition.
Right.
So I just tell my people, hey, you can watch it. It's probably better than 99% of things. Now there is a danger to this, of course, too, when you're dealing with spiritual things. Um, but it's probably better than a lot of the smut that's on TV. Just have your Bibles open too. Don't replace watching something for scriptural reading. That's my take on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That sounds about like what I say, which is great. It can be helpful, in fact, but really only if you actually know the scriptures, right? So you gotta know what's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, so that you can tell the difference between what's speculative and what's not.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so do you have something to say about the interplay of the disciples?
It's just, I mean, it is kind of the plot, the plot, the thing that drives the plot along. I only watched maybe the first handful of episodes. I got off the train when did I tell you this already? Then when Jesus and John the Baptist were having a conversation, and John the
Mhm.
Baptist was talking about how he was gonna go and tell Herod that he couldn't have Herodias, and Jesus kind of tells John, he kind of like, slow down a little bit, buddy. You're gonna get yourself in trouble. And I'm like that. I just don't think so. On the other hand, I did hear, and I don't remember what the argument was. I did hear the director talking about that very thing in an interview at some point, and he had a reason for it. I don't remember what the reason was, but I remember at the time being like, okay, maybe I made a hasty judgment about that choice. But I never went back because I just like, I don't know. I never went back.
Sure, yeah, it's like listening to preaching, right? So if my people say, should I listen to these preachers? And I'll always say, well, if you can handle it, right? If you're able to distinguish what's true and what's not. So I and I always had this joke. It's like I knew that Joel Osteen was a false prophet once he told me that he switched to turkey bacon several years ago and he can't tell the difference. I was like, I can't listen to another word that guy says.
That's good.
But
Master
it's
of
like, yeah, you're,
division.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Because we're just not big on controlling what people consume as long as it's not sinful inherently, right?
Right.
So like if they're, yeah, so I'd encourage people to listen to sermons. So my point is this is like every preacher has their own take on a different Bible story, and you might disagree with it. That's fine. This is where the analogy of faith comes in. It's like as long as it doesn't violate the faith. Now you could be wrong on something too, right? But I very much enjoy debating these things, and that'd be a fun Bible class if you had people engaged like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I would like it if people would be like, I don't agree with everything you said. That wouldn't be fun either. But
This is, I mean, this is helpful. It's one of the reasons why I love, especially like Renaissance art, because those guys, when they were painting biblical scenes, were theologians. They were not just realists. They were interpreting, and there's plenty to disagree with. But you have to find it. You have to study it and understand it. And there's a lot that you gain from going through the work. You know. Um, and maybe we're I don't know that the emergence of like the visual arts and media like television has all kinds of hazards, and maybe this is the most redeeming quality of it, is that like you know the gospel and God's word can be more accessible. So
Right. But we're gonna have to. It's like if there is a potential to be very good, you run this hazard of it also being very, very, very bad.
Right.
Right. It's
Yeah.
both at the same time. Exactly.
Yeah.
Did
Good.
do you have any other thoughts on Genesis 3, or do you want to talk to me about the fruit of the spirit?
Well, so just what, well, this can be connected because fruitfulness and offspring go together, right? Is this, the fruit of the womb, is that the
Mm.
same word? You get seed and offspring. That's the Hebrew synonym, or so the translation for the same word, seed and offspring, but fruit is not the same thing, I don't think. But in any case, I think it's worth observing how, because, um, because the promise is attached to Eve's offspring, I think we can't possibly overestimate how much that thought would govern all the entire life of God's people from that point forward, right? So we make much of the fact that when she gives birth to Cain, well, she thought she was having the Savior. Well, she, and I think every other faithful Israelite woman from that point forward, So why is Hannah so distraught? Well, it's not just that she wants children. That's certainly true. But you read Hannah's song, and it's evident that she recognizes that God is going to, raise up the lowly through offspring given to a faithful woman in Israel. And
Yeah,
then
and
and then
that's the Magnificat.
right, exactly. The connection is linear between the Magnificat and Hannah's song. Yeah, and then it also highlights the extreme jeopardy that emerged later at various points in history. Like, for instance, when nearly an entire top tribe is going to be wiped out at the end of Judges. Like, why are they panicking about Benjamin? Of course, it'd be tragic to lose a tribe, but it's also like, what about the lineage? What if Benjamin is the tribe? Wouldn't be surprising if Benjamin were the the source of the savior. He's the son of Jacob's old age, right? Makes sense. Or then when you get the promise attached to David, 2 Samuel 7. Now, when you get to the end of Kings and um, like Athaliah, wicked Queen Athaliah is on the throne, killing her grandsons. It's like, what happens if David's lineage gets wiped out? The jeopardy of those times. It's kind of hard. I think it's kind of hard for us to grasp what that would have been like if you believed. Like, it would be like Abraham raising his knife to slaughter Isaac. It's like, this sure feels like this is going to be the end of God's promises.
Yeah, that's really good. So my initial reaction was like, don't they know it's Judah? Like, don't they haven't they read Genesis 49? And don't they know that? But it's like, obviously looking back now, we're able to see things so clearly,
Right.
right? But yeah, if I was in that situation, I might have had the same thought. It's like, hey, why not Benjamin? And of course, the first king of Israel is a Benjaminite, right? So,
Yeah.
and and then in the New Testament, he's from the tribe of Benjamin too. So no,
Yeah.
that's good. And because the devil keeps going after women
Yeah.
because of the seed, right? So you see it with Sarah, right, and Pharaoh and
Yeah.
Abimelech, right? So yeah, no, that totally checks out.
Speaking of solving of the tribe of Benjamin, I just learned this today as I was preparing for Esther on Sunday. Mordecai, whose name means like worshiper of Marduk, is apparently, hadn't connected this before, but he's uh, apparently quite deviant. has apostatized essentially, but he's from the tribe of Benjamin. And who's his enemy in Esther? Do you know? It's Haman the Agagite, named like as in Agag the Amalekite, who Saul
Hmm.
spared and Samuel hacked to pieces. I mean, it's so rich. It's just like you can't make this stuff up.
That's pretty good. I love Esther. I think
Yeah,
I don't crucify me for this, but like I don't think Luther was the father of higher criticism, but I think picking and choosing books of the Bible based on their content is totally the higher critical move to do. He's like, I don't like Esther because it doesn't mention the Tetragrammaton. I don't like James because it doesn't mention salvation by grace through faith. Like he's he's got the right theological impulses, but isn't like deciding what you want the Bible to say, like the father of higher criticism.
Yeah, I mean, so do you think that that goes hand in hand? You know how like some of the most amazing artists, creative geniuses, they have to be a little bit psychopathic in order for their creative energy to exist, or like Elon Musk, in order to be as brilliant as he is, has to also be a little bit socially awkward, right? Luther, in order to be so fervent a theologian, also has to have these flights of fancy where, you know, depending on what he ate that morning, is probably going to determine how he feels about the Book of Esther, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the total thing. It's like you have these archetypes, I guess, like, and we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and you
Right.
need people like Luther to just be bombastic, over the top, get things going, and then you need a Melanchthon to come settle it down, right? So allow me to transition. This
Do
is
it.
why self control. This is why self control is the last thing listed. You wouldn't ever start with that because that means you're not alive, right? So you got to get the passions going and then tame them down.
Oh, that's good.
It's Yeah, so it's much easier to get a fervent unbeliever to the faith than it is to get somebody who just doesn't care, right?
Yeah.
Because one's on fire and you can reverse that fire, right? If the person who doesn't care, he's not alive. So that's a much tougher ask.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So do you see that then? So you got these two poles. You got love and self-control, right? So love is what ignites passion, and then self-control. It doesn't tame love, but it directs it. It keeps it on target, right? Yeah,
Right.
that's good.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you see? This is my curiosity. Um, what do you see as the superstructure of the fruit of the spirit? Do you see any arrangement there? Is it arbitrary? Was Paul just going like, so these nine things? No, what was the structure?
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's a structure. He starts with love. Paul has lots of things to say about love, right? Faith, hope, and love remain, but the greatest of these is love. Now you see faith in the fruit, in faithfulness, same word, right? Pistis. Um, Question is where's hope? But it doesn't
Yeah,
matter. So you start with love, because how does the Bible start? You start with God, right? And God is love. And then I think one way of reading this is that all of the things that follow are descriptions of love, which would therefore be descriptions of God Himself. And this lines up really well with 1 Corinthians 13, right? Love is patient, love is kind. So those are two things listed in the fruit there. Does not envy, does not boast. So that's one way that's super obvious to me. I've toyed with the idea that these follow the Ten Commandments too, kind of loosely. So you start with love. First commandment: don't worship any other gods. How does Jesus summarize the first table of law? Right, love the Lord your God, right, as yourself. And then you end with self control. Well, do not covet. Like
sure.
you got to have you got to have some self control, right? And it's not just physically. And Jesus is obviously he's great on this. He's like, you know, cut out your eye, so that which desires, cut off your foot, that which takes you to the scene of the crime, and then cut off your hand, that which actually pulls the trigger. All involve self control, but as we know, it starts with the eyes, which I'm talking about the heart.
Yeah,
So
comes back.
that's kind of the structure I see. What do you see?
No, that's good. That would lead to another question, which is, can you explain the structure of the Ten Commandments? Maybe you can do that. But here's just this is as I was working it out, I ended up preaching it in this way. Love primary, obviously. God is love. In this we know love, that Christ laid has down His life for us. It's the origin of all things. Is God's love. Joy and peace are unique in that they are reactive to circumstances. So they have to do with how we view the circumstances, the world around us, joy and peace. And so if you hook your joy and your peace on the temporal things, they will ebb and flow, right? But if you hook them on salvation, the joy of my salvation, and the peace that passes understanding, peace with your heavenly Father, then they're constant. Okay, so they joy and peace have to do with how you view the world, your circumstances. Patience and kindness have to do with how you think about your neighbor, the object of your love, both God and your neighbor. So Patience is the willingness to suffer long for the one you love, both God and like Jacob suffering for Rachel. Kindness sees your neighbor in proportion, right? So you think more of your neighbor than you think of yourself. So joy and peace are how you view the world around you. Um, Patience and kindness are how you view your neighbor, and then the last four really seem to me to be introspective. So goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, or meekness, self-control. So goodness is uh, living in a way that is glorious according to according to your design. Um, Faithfulness is according to your word, right? Meekness is according to your stature, and self-control is recognizing your own weakness. So you kind of have these different I don't know what the right way to put it would be, like scopes or viewpoints that are played out. Now I don't know that I would never claim that Paul intended that. That's how it's working out as I'm preaching them. So
No, that's really great. I didn't. I was just trying to piece. It kind of really worked out really well when I divided these up the way I
mhm.
did. Right. I mean, I was just like, and it wasn't like I was just like, we got 5 weeks, so we got 9 things listed here, so we got to do two a week. But it makes sense to just tackle love by itself, and it just kind of worked out that way. So I'm not going to claim like brilliance, but I'm. Hey, I believe in inspiration.
That's right. I mean, it's an emergent phenomena. These structures are emergent, so you have to
Oh
divide them up
goodness.
and and then see what happens. Yeah.
Oh, great, man! Now this is. I need to write my sermon for next Wednesday to close out the fruit of the spirit.
Yeah. Well, that's
Looking
your
looking
take on
forward
it
to it.
is really good. That's gonna be important for my sermon. What else? Anything else you got?
That's it for today. I got all my good thoughts out there. Now I need to go replenish.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm gonna hit the stop button.